You've been told that if you work hard, innovate, and play by the rules, you can build a legacy. But what if the very rules of the game were written by a handful of men a century ago? What if the system is quietly designed to keep power and wealth concentrated in the hands of a few? Today, we'll break down how the Rockefeller empire didn't just build a fortune in oil. They fundamentally re-engineered the flow of money, power, and even medicine, creating a world that still operates on their blueprint. But before we start, if you enjoy videos that expose the hidden mechanics of money and power, make sure you subscribe because we have a lot to uncover together. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you believe is fundamentally unfair about our current financial system? I'm curious to see how far this conversation reaches. Let's start with a question. Why is it that one family's ambition from the 19th century still dictates how global finance, philanthropy, and even healthcare operate today? The answer isn't just about oil profits or business acumen. It's about the silent architecture of control they built, a system designed to outlast a single lifetime and influence generations. In a world built on ambition and greed, our story, How the Rockefeller Empire Changed Money Forever, uncovers a hidden chapter in financial history, a story of power, manipulation, and lessons the world refused to learn. It all begins not with a bang, but with the methodical, ruthless ambition of one man, John D. Rockefeller. In the late 1800s, while others were caught in the chaotic frenzy of the oil boom, Rockefeller saw something different. He realized the real power wasn't in drilling for oil, but in controlling its journey from the ground to the lamp. By mastering the refining and transportation of oil through his company, Standard Oil, he created a monopoly so powerful it choked out all competition. This wasn't just business. It was a new form of economic warfare. Rockefeller employed tactics like predatory pricing, secret rebates with railroads, and industrial espionage to bankrupt his rivals, absorbing them into his ever-expanding trust. By the 1880s, Standard Oil controlled about 90% of the oil refining in the United States. He didn't just own a company. He owned an entire industry. This unprecedented consolidation of wealth and power gave him leverage that no single individual had ever possessed. He could influence politicians, dictate market prices, and bend the national economy to his will. This was the first lesson in the Rockefeller playbook. Control the infrastructure, and you control everything that flows through it. Money was no longer just a medium of exchange. It became a weapon of economic conquest. From the corridors of Wall Street to the boardrooms where nations are shaped, this narrative explores the rise, the fall, and the silent consequences that changed how money moves. The immense power of Standard Oil became so undeniable that it triggered a public and governmental backlash. The cry against monopolies grew louder, culminating in the landmark Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. For years, Rockefeller's lawyers outmaneuvered the government, but in 1911, the inevitable happened. The Supreme Court ordered the dissolution of the Standard Oil Trust, breaking it into 34 separate entities. To the public, it looked like a victory for the common man, a sign that no one was above the law. But for the Rockefellers, this was not a defeat. It was an evolution. John D. Rockefeller retained his shares in each of the 34 new companies, and as these baby standards like Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron began to compete, their collective value skyrocketed. Rockefeller's personal fortune, instead of diminishing, exploded. He became the world's first billionaire, his wealth far greater than it had been under the single trust. This moment taught the world's elite a critical lesson. Direct, visible monopoly is fragile. The true path to enduring power is through diversified, decentralized control that is much harder to identify and regulate. The octopus had been broken apart, but each of its tentacles grew into a new, powerful creature, all still connected by the same financial DNA. This forced diversification laid the groundwork for the modern investment portfolio, where wealth is protected by spreading it across an ecosystem of interconnected assets rather than a single, vulnerable entity. Every moment builds towards revelation, how decisions made in pursuit of profit reshaped economies, altered lives, and defined the meaning of value itself. Having mastered industry and survived the breakup of his empire, John D. Rockefeller and his descendants turned their attention to a new frontier, philanthropy. But this wasn't charity as the world knew it. It was strategic, designed to extend their influence into the very fabric of society. Through tax-exempt foundations like the Rockefeller Foundation and the General Education Board, they began to channel their immense wealth into shaping public institutions. It was a brilliant move. Philanthropy not only laundered their public image from robber barons to benevolent saviors, but also gave them a legal, tax-free mechanism to steer national policy. Their influence on medicine is perhaps the most profound example. The 1910 Flexner Report, funded by the Rockefeller-backed Carnegie Foundation, led to a complete overhaul of medical education in America. The report championed a pharmaceutical-based, patentable model of medicine, effectively discrediting and eliminating holistic and natural-based practices. Medical schools that didn't conform to this new, expensive, and drug-centric standard were shut down. This move not only created a new, highly profitable pharmaceutical industry in which the Rockefellers had significant investments, but it also fundamentally changed how society defined health and treatment. Value was no longer placed on wellness or prevention, but on patented cures and interventions. Their donations were not gifts. They were investments in a future where their industries would hold the keys to life itself. This strategic philanthropy extended to global affairs. After World War II, the Rockefeller family was instrumental in the creation of key international institutions like the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. David Rockefeller, John D.'s grandson, played a pivotal role in establishing the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg Group forums, where the world's most powerful politicians, financiers, and industrialists could meet in private to coordinate global policy, far from public scrutiny. They helped establish a new world order, one built on the principles they had mastered: centralized control disguised as international cooperation. The dollar, now the world's reserve currency, was the new oil, and through these institutions, they had built the refineries and pipelines to control its global flow. Their empire was no longer just about oil. It was about the architecture of global governance. As the truth unfolds, one question remains: did we master money, or did money master us? The Rockefeller legacy is a paradox. On one hand, their funding led to genuine scientific breakthroughs and the eradication of diseases. Their vision helped build the modern world. But on the other hand, the systems they created have led to a concentration of power and a model of finance that prioritizes profit over people. The pharmaceutical industry they helped birth is now criticized for its exorbitant prices and focus on profitable treatments over cures. The financial institutions they helped shape are often accused of perpetuating debt cycles in developing nations, a modern form of economic colonialism. The Rockefeller playbook controlled the choke points, diversify your influence, use tax-exempt foundations to shape policy, and operate behind the scenes, has been copied and perfected by a new generation of billionaires and corporations. The principles that built the Standard Oil empire are the same ones that now govern big tech, global finance, and media. We live in a world where a handful of entities control the flow of information, capital, and data, the oil of the 21st century. They too use philanthropy to burnish their image and lobby for favorable regulation, all while their wealth and influence grow exponentially. The empire's shadow looms long, reminding us that the fundamental rules of money and power, written over a century ago in the pursuit of a single family's ambition, still dictate the terms of our lives. The ultimate lesson from the Rockefeller saga is a sobering one. Power, once consolidated, rarely disappears. It simply changes its form. The question for us today is whether we can recognize the new empires rising before they become too powerful to challenge.